episode of the GOAT Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host with you as always, Jim Neander. Welcome into a Monday edition. I like to call it the hangover edition here after another nice long day of football, crazy day of football. Injuries, the big story, comebacks, blowouts, blowing huge leads again if you're the Falcons, crazy comebacks, had all the storylines here in week 2. We're going to go through our review series, right? So we're going to go ahead and review every single game today and tomorrow, split the games, half and half. We got the Monday night game tonight. But before I do that, I just want to run through, the injury outlook real quick, right? Want to go through all of that with you. So there's a lot to go through. Want to go through a lot of the main guys now. These are the guys we already knew were going to be out this week, basically before the game started. We already knew Michael Thomas was going to miss with the ankle. We knew Chris Godwin, was doubtful and probably wouldn't play in the concussion protocol. He didn't play. Jamison Crowder and then A.J. Brown also. So we had news that all those guys, very good receivers, big fantasy assets that were already going to be out. George Kittle, we got that word late also that Kittle was going to be out. So, already missing a lot of really top options, around the league. And then injuries just went crazy this week. I mean, it really was one after the other. If you're watching multiple screens and multiple TVs at once, sometimes you're just watching, injuries. I mean, there was like 3 or 4 at a time, it felt like sometimes. And lots of big names with huge impact on the fantasy season. And I'm going to go through the injuries now. We're not going to really talk too much about the replacements as we go through their individual games. We'll get into a little bit more, who did get the work after they went out injured. And then obviously, who we kind of project going forward. Trying to help you out with your waiver wire picks a little bit here as well. So let's start at the top here with Saquon Barkley. Confirmed torn ACL, out for the year. Terrible news. Long term for him. The outlook, it sucks, right? We know what's going on with the running back landscape. It's hard to get, paid in some instances by teams. And now he's had, a couple of injuries, and it's going to, we're going to have to see how he comes back from this injury next year. Hopefully, rehab goes well, surgery goes well, comes back, has all the same bounce in his step and spring, cutting action, all that stuff. But it's a tough injury to come back from. Christian McCaffrey goes down, not quite as severe, thankfully. He has I think it was a high ankle sprain, and it sounds like about a month for Christian McCaffrey to be out. So if you miss, 4 games without Christian McCaffrey, that's going to be really, really tough. So right there, you have basically the consensus number 1 and number 2 picks. McCaffrey and Barkley out for extended time. McCaffrey for about a month, and Barkley for the rest of the season. We had Cortland Sutton in Denver. It appears that it's a pretty severe knee injury, possibly a torn ACL, and it does seem like he very well might be missing the rest of his season as well. In the same game, Drew Lock went down. They're talking about 2 to 6 weeks for Drew Lock. So Denver all of a sudden without their, their young up-and-coming quarterback and without their, top wide receiver, both out. Bad news for Denver. They're already 0-2, and things are not going to get any better. Already lost Von Miller on the defensive side. So, Devontae Adams in Green Bay leaves the game. Hamstring injury, the season of the hamstring. And that one's bad. We don't really have any other word on it right now. I can't imagine he's going to practice over the next couple of days. And, hopefully we'll get more clarity near the end of the week. But, to bump up the other receivers in Green Bay right now, Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball really well. And while he probably will take a little bit of dip without Devontae Adams, we'll see what's going to happen there. So hopefully we get better news on Devontae Adams. That one's tough also. Cam Akers, Los Angeles Rams running back, left the game with a rib injury, and we don't really have much news on that. So we'll just kind of consider him, week to week until we hear anything else. But he had to leave that game, opened it up for Darrell Henderson, who had a very nice game. Malcolm Brown also left that game late with a finger injury. So we don't know how severe that finger injury is, but Darrell Henderson might be the top waiver wire pick for the week, depending on the outcome of those. Let's see. We've also got here Paris Campbell. Turns out it wasn't as bad as it looked. He got carted off Looked like it could have been a season-ending injury. Right now, it seems to be a sprained MCL and ACL, and we don't really have a timetable for his recovery, but possibly sometimes later in the year. But obviously, he's just an easy drop if you have him stashed, and maybe Michael Pittman. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Raheem Mostert, a mild MCL sprain, so left the game there. Tevin Coleman also left the game. Jerick McKinnon looked good. Jerick McKinnon could also be the top waiver wire pickup, kind of depending on if we get a little more information. If we think Mostert's going to miss, a few weeks or something like that, then I think McKinnon's going to be a great pickup. So, yeah. But Jimmy Garoppolo also, got knocked out of that game, and Nick Mullins had to finish the game there. So that was kind of crazy. We haven't really heard much about Garoppolo, so I'm not sure what our expectations are for his timeline. See if I can find a little more information. I forgot to look at him. High right ankle sprain, and that's all we hear right now in the ESPN injury report. So, I'm not really sure. So, geez, if Kittle is out again, and all of a sudden Garoppolo is out, and it's just all turning into a mess there with that San Francisco team. Brashad Perryman, Sterling Shepard. These guys also went out. Sammy Watkins probably going to be in the concussion protocol, and then Tyrod Taylor, the last one I'm going to bring up. Tyrod Taylor was not knocked out of the game, actually. Never even got into the game. Apparently had chest pains, had to be brought to the hospital. Check those out. Pretty scary stuff. But, he was back to watch, the game as far as I remember. And Justin Herbert looked fantastic. And I know Anthony Lynn came out and said that, Tyrod Taylor's the guy, but there's going to be a whole lot of fan fervent and media reaction to wanting to see Herbert in the game because he looked that good. Almost took down the defending champs. Going to be hard to keep him out of the lineup for long. Tyrod Taylor didn't look good in week 1. Whatever's going on with his chest, I really don't know. It happens. The guy's a warrior, but, we'll see. So, crazy week. So you got to make sure you're paying attention to whatever it is, whether you listen to me or me in addition to other people and a bunch of podcasts and shows, whatever it is. It's very important to, have an idea of what's going to go on the waiver wire this week. Who are the guys most likely to take over for these players? What's that going to mean going forward? So big stuff. Big stuff. I expect Devontae Freeman to be signed this week. I expect Lamar Miller to be signed this week. We'll see who else maybe comes out of the woodwork. Marshawn Lynch? No, I'm kidding. But no, there's going to be some veterans that get signed, and some are going to have impact on their own. Some are going to impact other players. We already see with Leonard Fournette, right? Had a big game. So, there's going to be a lot of movement this week. So, keep on top of it. We'll do our best to help you out and keep you up to date with any news that we get here. So, yeah. All right, let's get it going with our first game we're going to review. Remember, we already talked about that Cleveland and Cincinnati game. We already went over that game, the Thursday night game on Friday, so we're not going to hit on it too much. But the running backs, really held up there as far as their weekly finish. You had Chubb at number 3 and Hunt at number 5. This is in PPR. And, that was really it. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr., I think, was in the high teens. Maybe he finishes number 17, number 19, maybe something like that. And I believe Joe Burrow was the quarterback 9 on the week. So really nice job for the rookie there. He did pretty well. So we had some surprises in the QB1s. Not many, though. Herbert was just outside. Minshew was number 12. Goff at 11. Fitzpatrick at 10. Burrow at 9. And Tannehill at 8. And then the rest of the guys, we all expect to be up there. Well, maybe not Cam Newton as far up as he was, but great game for Cam Newton. All right, let's get to the games. Let's get to the games here. Let's start with the Chicago Bears hosting those New York Giants. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, the Saquon Barkley news, terrible. He only got 4 carries in on the game. So unlike Christian McCaffrey, you didn't even get, this game's worth of points out of him. You started him, and he didn't give you any points, and it hurt, and then you lost him for the year. So it just sucked all around for the Saquon Barkley owner. It was a crappy day. I actually made a move already with another Saquon Barkley owner. I needed a quarterback in the league where I have Wentz stinking up the joint, and he needed a running back. And I took a late round, the last round flyer on James Robinson, and this is exactly why. I've got running back depth to spare, and All right. Yeah, shouldn't say running back depth to spare, but I feel pretty good about it, and we both have a need, so we made it happen. But in New York, Saquon Barkley going to be out for the year, so you have to look to other places. Daniel Jones already didn't look great in this game. I know Chicago is a tough defense, but Daniel Jones had a tough time getting it going. He did have all of his targets on the field for the first time, at least for a very short amount of time. To get the game started, he lost Sterling Shepard to turf toe and Barkley, of course, but still had a tough day there. Who's going to take over for New York? We know Dion Lewis will be involved. Wayne Gallman is also going to get, a nice share of carries. That's the assumption. I definitely think they're going to go to the veteran route. Whether it's Freeman or Miller or somebody else, I don't know. But I think they're going to bring somebody in this week. So look for that to happen, and that will affect things. But it may not happen before Wednesday's waiver wire runs. So make sure you grab Dion Lewis, especially I would say in PPR formats, and Gallman if you have a spot on your bench. He's worth a flyer, just to pick up and see what happens with the timeshare or who they pick up. Wide receivers here, Golden Tate, 5 of 5 for 47, no touchdowns, so barely playable there. Darius Slayton did not have a big game here. 3 catches for 33 yards on 6 targets. Never really got it going. And as I said, Shepard left early. He caught 2 balls for 29 yards. So all the wide receivers for New York let you down if you played any of them. They hurt. And, going forward, I still would play, Darius Slayton next week, especially if Sterling Shepard's going to be out with his toe. And the running game is going to be probably much less effective without Saquon Barkley. Not that it has been so far. But you might see a good amount of targets going to the outside guys here. So Slayton, could pick up some targets. Same thing with Tate. And then Evan Ingram had 8 targets in this game, caught 6 of them for 65 yards. Not a bad game for Evan Ingram here. And so for Ingram owners, after that bad first week, you're at least happy to see him getting some work in there. He did not crack the top 12, though. He was the tight end 13 on the week, just behind Tyler Eifert, if you can believe that. Yeah, Tyler Eifert, I said it. All right, let's go over to the Bears side of the ball. The Bears did win this game 17-13. They are 2-0. So, it's an ugly 2-0. They barely held off the Giants here at the end. And, of course, they had to come back in the fourth quarter against the Lions to win that game. But, hey, however you got to do it, you got to do it. They are 2-0. Trubisky here, pretty quiet game. 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks also, though. So, he was well outside the quarterback ones. David Montgomery had himself a nice week. 16 for 82 on the ground, so nice and efficient, 5 yards per carry. But the receiving work was where he got you the points this week, surprisingly enough. 3 receptions on 3 targets, 45 yards, and 1 touchdown. And that put him up into the top 12 for the week. 21.7 points in PPR landed him at running back 7 on the week, man. That was probably his best week as far as his finish, running back 7. You had a few of these guys in the 20s, and then a gigantic gap to Aaron Jones at number 1 here this week. Leonard Fournette, the number 2 running back on the week, if you can believe that. Heading into Monday night, I'm not sure if Alvin Kamara definitely might wind up as the number 2 running back. I don't know that Josh Jacobs can get there tonight against a pretty stingy Saints defense. All right, again, I'm off track here. Cordero Patterson got 7 carries, just something to keep an eye on. And Tariq Cohen got 5. Kind of a reason why Montgomery only had 16. Again, very good game from Montgomery. Would prefer him to have 20 carries, though. And, Patterson had 3 and Cohen had 5. Right? But it is what it is. Outside, very disappointing game. As I mentioned, only 190 yards passing for Mitchell Trubisky with 2 touchdowns. One of those going to David Montgomery and 1 going to Darnell Mooney. Make an appearance, Mooney. 3 receptions on 3 targets, 36 yards, and that touchdown. Definitely not somebody that's, on anybody's radar at this point. But, Darnell Mooney. Just keep him on your radar, especially since Anthony Miller didn't catch any of his 3 targets, and we'll see what that means. But Anthony Miller, if you played him, you got the big old goose egg, and that's never fun. Allen Robinson struggled mightily in this game, or should I say Mr. Trubisky struggled finding Allen Robinson in this game. 9 targets, only 3 catches, 33 yards, no trip to the end zone. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Do not collect almost any points for Allen Robinson. A struggle. I played him in DFS. I thought it was a good pick. I had him in one of my lineups, and that blew up on me. If you play Jimmy Graham chasing the points, he had 1 target. He caught it for 18 yards. So, it's hard to chase the points when you see a guy, has one good week. This week was tough. But just overall, before we get to the next game, I do want to say that this week was really tough. I think for fantasy football in general, because I've never really been one of those guys that's like, you can really see what you have in week 1. I don't know if you can see what you have about almost anybody in week 1, honestly, but I really don't subscribe to that. Like, you can see what you have in a guy in week 1. I do like to see people get usage and hope that carries on to week 2. But we saw in a lot of instances this week that targets, carries, timeshare, let alone just the injuries. But even outside of that, just didn't hold from where they were week 1. And I think that the lack of a preseason is just giving these coaches a little bit more of a need to experiment early in the season and vary things up to see what they have and what works. They really haven't had that much time except for practice to see that. So I'm expecting this a little bit more of an unpredictable nature of timeshare, and it's just going to make it even more difficult for fantasy owners to really tie down what's going to happen, and it makes those very few guys like Zeke, that are locked into their roles, that much more valuable. So just something to think about, something to chew on while we talk about it. All right, let's go to the fun game of the week. Atlanta Falcons went to the Dallas Cowboys, took a big lead into every quarter, and then just couldn't close it out. Lost 40-39. So we knew there were going to be points here, but still far exceeded the over-under and possibly even fantasy expectations for many players. But there were plenty of busts here. Don't let the points fool you. There were plenty of busts that if you played them, you were upset. My guy especially. But we're not going to start there. We're going to start with Atlanta. So Atlanta, Matt Ryan, have a start to the season here, buddy. 273 yards and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and was having a great game. The defense just couldn't stop Dallas in the fourth quarter, and they could not, get any points on the board in the fourth quarter going. Really, Atlanta still scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. Just wasn't enough to hold off the onslaught from Dallas. In the second half, Dallas scored 30 points of their 40 in the second half. So, yeah, pretty tough there. But Todd Gurley, kind of quiet day, 21 carries, 61 yards. You're happy to see, 20 carries. But, another day without a target. Brian Hill got 2 targets, and Keith Smith got 2 targets. So, there's a couple of guys getting targets from the backfield, but none of them are Todd Gurley. And that's concerning because if they're scoring their touchdowns from outside the 5 or the 10, which they seem to be most of the time, then you're not going to get the goal line touches or as many as you'd hope. And if they're not throwing him the ball, then you're worried. So I was high on Gurley, and he's definitely falling far down my projection boards. I like the usage, worried about the value of his usage, and in PPR, he's definitely, definitely falling outside of there. So, didn't give you much this week. We'll see the 20 carries. He's definitely flexible, next week, but he's outside of my RB2 range, as far as I can tell going forward. But, we'll go from there. All right, on the outside here, Calvin Ridley killed it again. Caught 7 out of his 10 targets, 109 yards, another couple of touchdowns. The number 1 wide receiver through 2 weeks, and he's crushing it. He's an absolute red zone magnet, and say what you will, it could be all the attention on Julio. There's a lot of ways you can spin it. End of the day, the kid scores touchdowns left and right. And if you've got Calvin Ridley, you are thrilled right now. You went and got him as possibly your wide receiver 2, or you waited a little while to draft wide receiver, and if he's your wide receiver 1, and you got him in that 4th round because you went running back heavy, man, you're probably killing it right now if you did go with your running back. So, hey, Calvin Ridley is locked and loaded. Russell Gage, I think at this point, is locked and loaded as a wide receiver 3 and a flex play. His totals right now are well above that. I believe he's probably a wide receiver 1 through 2 weeks. But he got 6 out of his 9 targets for 46 yards and a touchdown. Another really good week, and the 9 targets is the key. 12 in week 1, 9 in week 2. If you're going to tell me it's 6 plus, which at this point it's silly to think it's not going to be 6 plus, then yeah, this guy's flexible. I think he's locked and loaded. Wide receiver 3. Go ahead and play him next week. Julio Jones, disappointing day, more of a decoy. Caught 2 balls, 24 yards, only 4 targets. So I understand that Julio's going to have more than 4 targets. Absolutely. But that'll be at the expense of maybe some other people. Maybe not. You also have to understand, Matt Ryan, I don't want to say only threw the ball 36 times, but that's not a lot for Matt Ryan in this offense. 36 is just not a ton. There weren't, that many in the, second half. Dallas had the ball a ton. So, Julio, it is what it is. You get a couple of bust games out of him a year. He's one of the most consistent guys there is. And aside from Ridley catching touchdowns, you're not, worried about Julio at all. So, Hayden Hurst had his big game. Week 1 was quiet. Maybe you were worried. Had 8 targets in this game. Caught 5 of them for 72 yards and a touchdown. So, really big game for Hayden Hurst. His first big one as an Atlanta Falcon. And he was the tight end. Where are you, buddy? Tight end 6? Tight end 7. Oh, just behind Dalton Schultz. Man, did he have a day. The Blake Jarwin truthers are hurting right now with Dalton Schultz getting all this work. But Hayden Hurst, good game. Play him next week. You can feel more confident now. All right, let's go over to Dallas. Dak Prescott went crazy. 450 yards through the air. Only threw for 1 touchdown, but ran in 3 more touchdowns, so 4 total on the day. And he was just a beast. Brought him back, 34 of 47. Did a great job leading this team. I thought looked really bad for most of the first half and turned it on. So what are you going to do? He turned it on late and really went nuts and pulled it through. So Dak is locked and loaded. So is Zeke. 22 more carries for Zeke, 89 yards and a touchdown. A very Zeke day on the ground, 4 yards per rush. And, unfortunately, Dak Prescott took a few of his touchdowns. If he gets 1 more of those touchdowns, he's, right near the top for the week. You also love to see 7 targets, caught 6 balls for 33 yards. So had another great week. Zeke, if he got that extra touchdown, would have been right up there. As it was, he's the running back 6 on the week. And again, like I said, that 1 extra touchdown would have made him the RB2 at this moment. So great week for Zeke, ready to go. Nobody else had enough carries to make a difference, which you expect. Zeke gets the workload. Let's look outside here, okay? Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, big games, really looked good. Dalton Schultz had a huge game. Michael freaking Gallup, my guy, Michael Gallup, just not doing it so far through 2 weeks. 5 more targets, but caught 2 of them for 58 yards. And wasn't really involved until late in the game. Had some really high-value targets in the 4th quarter. And, missed on a couple of them, caught a couple of long passes. Just worried about my pick with Michael Gallup. And now, I'm worried about my lineups. I have a lot of shares of him. And I'm really not sure, to keep him as that wide receiver 3 or flex, which I thought he was going to be much better than that. And he hasn't even been, a wide receiver 3 at this point. So, sweating it hardcore. But let's go to the guys that did perform. Amari Cooper, 6 of 9 for 100. No trip to the end zone. So, pretty okay day without the touchdown. That hurts a little bit. CeeDee Lamb caught also 6 of 9 for 106 yards. And that kid looked great. CeeDee Lamb is fast. He just moves so quick in and out of his cuts. I love it. He passes the eye test in a big way. And then Dalton Schultz, who I thought would be definitely less involved than maybe I was expecting Blake Jarwin to be, caught 9 of his 10 targets for 88 yards and a touchdown. And, there were some big tight end weeks this week, and that kind of kept him out of that top group. But he was still the tight end 6 on the week. 21.8 points. A lot of weeks, that gives you the tight end 2, or maybe even 1. So there were a few big performances this week with multiple touchdowns, but very good week for Dalton Schultz. I'm not sure I'm ready to say start him next week, but if it's a big question mark for your tight end, you can do worse than starting Dalton Schultz in an offense that has this capability to blow up at any time. All right, are we falling behind here already? I don't even know how many more games we got to get to. No, we're doing all right. Yeah, no, we're doing all right. No worries, no worries. Let's see here. All right, let's go to Green Bay. The Green Bay Packers, Aaron Jones went bananas. They hosted the Detroit Lions, and it was not pretty. 42-21, the Packers won, dominated the second half of this game. Detroit, without Kenny Golladay, certainly, struggling to get it going a little bit on the outside there to their wide receivers. Their receivers were not very effective at all, and most of the work through the air went through tight ends and running backs, and that's never a good sign. So hopefully Golladay is back for week 3. I think they're saying that he's going to be, and that'll be only good for Matthew Stafford, who didn't have a terrible day. 244, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. It's fine. Nothing terrible there. Not great. The running back room continues to be an absolute, disaster as far as, who to think about playing. The only reason that DeAndre Swift is elevated above Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson is the receiving work. I mean, that's just what it is. Now, Kerryon Johnson got in the end zone in this game. So let's just break down their performance. Adrian Peterson, 7 carries, 41 yards. Kerryon Johnson, 8 for 32, and the touchdown. DeAndre Swift, 5 for 12. That's on the ground. Now, through the air, Kerryon Johnson only had 1 target. He didn't catch it. Adrian Peterson had no targets. But DeAndre Swift caught all 5 of his targets for 60 yards. Now, in PPR, it's 11 points, and that's still well out, that out trumps. that is better than Kerryon Johnson's touchdown, okay? That is more points. I'm struggling. That is more points than Kerryon Johnson's, extra touchdown. And DeAndre Swift is going to be the passing down back, and Matt Patricia needs to just give him the bulk of the work in the running game and in the passing game and see what they have here. So until that happens, I'm not starting any of them. But Swift, with the passing work, he could pass as a guy that you could flex. That's just what it is. Nobody did anything on the outside. Marvin Jones got in the end zone, so he caught 4 out of 6 balls for 23 yards. The touchdown, kind of saved his day, giving you that, 12 and change, and made him playable. He didn't kill you if you did play him, hoping that he was going to, do really well without Golladay in the lineup. Amendola got 7 targets, caught 2 of them for 21 yards. Brutal game there. Quintez Cephas, I saw some people picking him up after I don't even know what he had, 10 targets last week, but he's only targeted 3 times, caught them all for 54 yards, but he won't really have any value. So let's move along to a team with lots of value here, the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, again, a really good game, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns. So yes, the points weren't there for Aaron Rodgers as far as you're hoping he has a big week. But at the end of the day, the offense is firing on all cylinders right now. And you just got to be happy about that, quite frankly. He was a quarterback 14 on the week, so not bad. Didn't hurt you. Just under 20 points. And, Aaron Jones got in the end zone twice on the ground. And that's going to happen sometimes. What are you going to do? They had a slow start, and then they turned it on a little bit. So Aaron Rodgers, I think, is still, right now, kind of locked and loaded for me as a QB1. So, yeah, Aaron Jones, by far, not only the number 1 scoring running back on the week, he was the number 1 scoring fantasy player on the week. He just went bonkers, got in the end zone 3 times, ran the ball 18 times for 168 yards, including a 75-yard burst right through the pack. And that was an amazing run. He looked great. Even outside of that run, the numbers are great. And then he caught 4 out of his 8 targets for 68 yards and a touchdown. Guy is a killer, man. He really is. And having a great start to the season. Green Bay's having a great start to the season. So Aaron Jones is locked and loaded, RB1 right now. And people that thought the touchdown regression had to be there, it might be there in a small way, but it might not be there anywhere near to the extent that people were saying it was necessarily going to happen, right? A.J. Dillon, got 5 carries. Jamal Williams got 8. Neither of those guys were, involved in the passing game. So we haven't seen any issues with him losing work. And when you perform to this level, you shouldn't lose work. So I'm not worried about it right now. Aaron Jones, ready to kill it every week for you. On the outside, unfortunately, Devontae Adams was, left the game with a pulled hamstring. We don't, again, have more information. I said that. I would be surprised if he plays this week. I'm expecting him to miss a week at least, and then we'll go from there. Now, whether or not he misses a week, Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Allen Lazard both still have wide receiver 3, playability, for sure. Scantling had 7 targets in this game. Only caught 3 for 64 yards, but that's still almost 10 points. Didn't kill you, and if he caught 1 or 2 more of those, it would have been a decent day. Lazard had 5 targets, caught 3 of them for 45 yards. And, I think without Devontae Adams on the other side, it's hard to know who to play. I lean towards MVS just because of the big playability, but they're both going to be very, very involved in this passing offense, and I want both of them if I can, and if I have that need there at wide receiver, I'm very happy to play either of those guys in that wide receiver 3 or that flex spot. Nothing going with tight ends here. Nothing to see here. No surprise there. All right. Let's move it on. Moving on to the next game here. We're halfway through. We're halfway through our little recap. All right. Going to go to Tennessee. Tennessee. There ain't no place I'd rather be. All right. Tennessee Titans, they hosted the Jacksonville Jaguars in a nail-biter. And Jacksonville, man, they are just scrappy. Again, I'm going to say it again. I love Minshew, scrappy kid. Keeps his team in the game, never gives up, and just kind of makes plays happen. So he went for 339 with 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, threw the ball 45 times. Big difference from last week when he only threw the ball 20 times. So we knew, it was going to be, more than 20. Didn't expect 45, but, they were trying to come back, and Tannehill was just playing, so lights out and so efficient that, I understand. But Minshew made the top 12. He was the QB 12, or at least at this point might get bumped tonight. But really nice week for Gardner Minshew, 23.5 points. And I think that not only is he a streaming option, with his upcoming schedule, I think you want to have Gardner Minshew, on your bench and, have him as an option. Some people are moving into a very tough schedule stretch right now. He's moving into his easiest and looking good doing it. So, yeah, I'm ready to play Minshew next week. So, you heard it here. James Robinson had himself a game. They're leaning on him right now, and I understand that Divine Ozigbo could be back in a week or two, and, we don't know what that's going to mean. But 16 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown. Almost 6.5 yards a clip. Love to see that. And then, also did a little bit of work on the outside. Caught 3 or 4 passes for 18 yards. And I know that's not a lot, but, 3 catches for 18 yards. It's almost 5 extra points added on there. And it's a good weekend. He was over 20 points, I believe. And, 21 points. And he cracked inside the top 12, Running back 8 right now on the week. So, beautiful week for him. If you've got him, he's great trade bait right now. But he's very playable. I think he's a possible low-end RB2, high-end RB3. But I did trade him to the Saquon Barkley owner for a quarterback asset that I needed. And I thought about just grabbing, Aaron Rodgers, I thought about just grabbing Gardner Minshew on the waiver wire, which I still might. But, I wanted Rodgers, and I had a piece to give away. So, yeah. Laviska Shenault grabbed 5 carries for 37 yards. That's a lot for a wide receiver to snag. But, for Shenault, believers, he had 4 targets again, caught 3 for 35. And then with the carries, he's got a little value there if he breaks a play. But, he's got to have more targets to really have real value, week in and week out. All right, let's talk about the receivers here. DJ Chark, you're getting a little bit worried with the usage. Only 4 targets, caught all of them for 84 yards, and that's the talent. I mean, he's excellent, but he's got to get the ball more to really have a great year. And if he's not going to get the passes, he's not going to break out. So right now, he's a wide receiver 3 in my book, and until I see more targets, I can't move him up. He's a wide receiver, high-end wide receiver 2 talent, maybe a wide receiver 1 talent. But right now, he's getting wide receiver 3 targets. So that is what it is. Keelan Cole, another big week. Caught 6 of 7 targets, 58 yards and a touchdown. And along with Chris Conley, they had the share of the lead for targets with 7. Conley caught 4 for 48. So this is all getting a little bit, hairy as far as the wide receivers here. I would say Keelan Cole is getting near that flexible, category. I probably want to see it for one more week, I guess. But that's getting a little bit greedy. But you probably should, roster Keelan Cole. I'm sure he's out there. He can't be rostered in many leagues, and you can go grab him. I'd take him over Chris Conley for sure. And I'd probably take him over Laviska Shenault as well, just because of his work in the passing game. So, Keelan Cole, just a name to look out for. Tight ends got some work in this game. You had 4 targets to James O'Shaughnessy. You had 6 targets to Tyler Eifert. Eifert caught the touchdown. So 3 for 36 and a touchdown. Got Eifert into the tight end 12 position for the moment before the Monday game. And we'll see if he stays there. But pretty nice game for Tyler Eifert. Nice game for Jags tight ends. No, I am not playing Tyler Eifert next week. No, I'm not playing James O'Shaughnessy. I'm not thinking about either of those guys, but they did have a nice little week there. So, got to bring them up. All right, I brought up Tannehill. Great week. Only threw the ball 24 times. That's always a concern with Tannehill, but when you throw for 239 and 4 touchdowns without your best wide receiver, then that's a great thing. I know it's a great matchup with Jacksonville, but he looked great. You throw 4 touchdowns, again, without your top wide receiver and A.J. Brown. Amazing, amazing game. Now, I'm not worried about Derrick Henry because I have no shares in him. I told you not to grab Derrick Henry, but if you did, you should be starting to get worried. 25 more carries. You expect that. That's great. But 84 yards, another very inefficient game for him. 3.4 yards per carry. Had 2 targets, didn't catch either of them. And so you got to be worried about usage, fatigue and usage and inefficiency. So, Tannehill threw 4 touchdowns. I understand that won't happen every week. And if you gave Derrick Henry one of those touchdowns, then he has, an okay enough week that he didn't hurt you. But as it was, 8.4 points. It's hard. It's hard. And with all these injuries, and he's already got, 56 carries in 2 weeks, I'd just be a little bit worried. All right, going to the outside. Who caught these touchdowns? Well, Adam Humphries caught a touchdown. Caught 5 balls on 6 targets, 48 yards and a touchdown. To me, he doesn't have value unless A.J. Brown is out. If A.J. Brown is out, I can think about playing him as a wide receiver 3 or a flex. But with A.J. Brown most likely coming back this, next week, maybe the next week after that at the most, Humphries isn't on my radar. Corey Davis, hey, only had the 5 targets, but again, Tannehill didn't throw the ball that much. Caught 3 balls, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Obviously becoming a trusted target for Tannehill. And I do think that Corey Davis is in that wide receiver 3 conversation on a weekly basis moving forward, with or without A.J. Brown at this point. And the big game here goes to Jonnu Smith. Caught 4 of his 5 targets, 84 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a 63-yard reception where he looked every bit as fast as everyone on the field, quite frankly. That dude is really, really fast for a tight end. That's where the big play ability comes in. And Jonnu Smith needs to be started moving forward at this point. He just needs to be. I'd be starting him over, there's some decent guys I'd be starting him over, including Evan Ingram, definitely Rob Gronkowski. Probably, I know Hunter Henry had a good game, but maybe even Hunter Henry, I don't know. But yeah, that's tough. But he had a great game. Titans are one to look out for. Tannehill, just continues to be really, really good with the work that he gets. And it's hard to deny it anymore. You gotta just be on board with it, All right. Let's try to knock these last 3 out a little quicker here. We got the Indianapolis Colts. They took on the Minnesota Vikings at home and absolutely handled them. 28-11. Minnesota only scored 3 points in the first 3 quarters and just could not get anything going. Cousins was awful. 11 of 26. 113 yards, no touchdowns. 3 interceptions. I have to look. It sounds like that could be negative. Is that negative points? I need to know. I must know. Let's see. Where are you? I can't even find him, can I? Dalton had 0. Hurts. Maybe do I have to go? Maybe they won't show it because it's negative. I don't know. It can't be, can it? Kirk Cousins? I can't find him, people. I know I said I want to go fast, but I can't find him. I think he had negative points, right? Yes, I think he had like negative 1 point. I don't even know what's saying. We go to the very last page here, and maybe they'll have him. Yes, negative 1.48 points. Oh my God. That is awful. I can't remember the last time I saw negative. I mean, Drew Lock had negative, but he got knocked out of the game. But that's not fair. But oh my goodness, that's wild. Negative 1.5 points. I hope you didn't play Kirk Cousins. And I know you played Dalvin Cook, but that was all right because he got in the end zone. So Dalvin Cook, 14 carries, 63 yards, and that one trip to the end zone. Two receptions on 2 targets for 8 yards. I don't get that, but he's got to be targeted more. I know they didn't complete many passes, but maybe that's part of it. Maybe throw the ball to Dalvin Cook more. I don't know. Let's look to the outside here. Adam Thielen caught 3 out of 8 targets for 31 yards. He was by far the target share leader, and unfortunately did not do anything with it. I mean, did not do anything with it, right? Over a third of the targets, and it was an awful game for them. Justin Jefferson, the rookie at LSU, caught all 3 of his targets for 44 yards. I would like him to be the number 2, kind of fulfill, not the Stephon Diggs role as in he's that same kind of player, which he's not, but just being the clear number 2 to Adam Thielen. And I think that's a role that he should get sooner than later. And because of that, would be on my radar as someone that's very stashable, right? You can throw him on your bench and hope something happens with him sooner than later. But we'll see. Hopefully they start using him. And that was it. There was nobody else here that was worth using. Alexander Madison, after a big week 1, extremely quiet this week. BC Johnson, tight ends, Kyle Rudolph, Irv Smith, nothing. I mean, nothing going on for the Minnesota Vikings. So let's move over to the Colts. Phillip Rivers had a tough game in a win here. 19 of 25, I get it, but 214 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. We're hoping for a little bit more in the home debut for Phillip Rivers, I think. Now, Jonathan Taylor, this is what you were hoping for. There were the 2 guys, right? You had Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and you're looking at them as these big waiver wire pickups. I loved them both. Well, not waiver wire pickups, but weekly bumps in value. With the Marlon Mack injury, Jonathan Taylor was going from a guy that had that kind of upside to a guy that has that kind of reality to be a running back 1. And, Nyheim Hines was a long shot with all the target potential because we know Phillip Rivers loves to spam passes out of the backfield until he doesn't. And he only threw the ball 3 times this game to running backs, 2 to Taylor and 1 to Hines. And Hines didn't have a carry. So if you played Hines, I'm sorry. I played him in DFS, and I got burned, man. I got burned bad. It was no good. No bueno. Got burned. Jonathan Taylor owners, however, did not. Even though he did not get many passes, he caught both of his targets for 9 yards. He ran the ball 26 times for 101 yards and a touchdown. You like to see better than 3.9 yards per carry, but the 26 carries is what matters. That's huge going forward. Jonathan Taylor is the number 1. Nyheim Hines is someone to keep on your bench, but he definitely drops out of playability for me. Going forward, Jonathan Taylor is the guy to have, and a great guy to have. So you might have hit pay dirt with him. Moving to the outside here, T.Y. Hilton, very disappointing game. 3 catches on 5 targets, 28 yards. Got to be worried about him. We know Paris Campbell was knocked out of the game with that injury, so he's not going to be on your bench anymore for the time being. Now, Michael Pittman, the rookie, is worth picking up absolutely. Now, 6 targets, caught 4 of them for 37 yards. Obviously not a great stat line, but 6 targets is the key thing here. With Paris Campbell absolutely out for a short while, Pittman has the chance to elevate himself as the number 2 in this offense, and quite frankly, can be the number 1. T.Y. Hilton will, always be the number 1 in that sense, but Pittman can be the highest scoring wide receiver in this offense moving forward as long as Campbell is out. So definitely pick up Michael Pittman. He's a big pickup for me this week. If he's out there, grab him, stash him on the bench, find room for him, and see what happens. Don't know if I'm playing him next week, but find out. All right. Zach Pascal caught the touchdown, didn't really do much else, so I'm not looking at him right now. And Mo Alley Cox might be the most surprising stat line of the week if it wasn't for another tight end that moved places named Mr. Jordan Reed, but we'll get to that later. But this was crazy. Mo Alley Cox caught 5 out of his 6 targets for 111 yards for an average of 22.2 yards per catch with 133, all right, so if you told me 5 for 111 and something crazy happened where he had like a 75-yard play, I'd be like, all right, well, then the other 4 went for 40. But no, take off that long of 33, right? And he's got 4 passes for like almost 80 yards. So, Jack Doyle was out. Not sure when Jack Doyle is coming back. I can look into it a little bit here to see if they say anything. No, I don't really have an update here with Jack Doyle. So, keep an ear out. If Jack Doyle continues to be out, yes, Mo Alley Cox can be a sleeper of a tight end pick. I'd still be a little bit worried about it, but you can play him. All right, let's go to Buffalo. More weird things happening here early in the season. So we had a power outage. We lost footage of the game. There was one touchdown that basically nobody saw, the Devontae Parker touchdown. We heard it happened. It was a rumor. But then we actually saw, it was awesome. I don't know if you saw it, but there was cell phone footage from the end zone, or kind of the corner of the end zone, just from a fan that got the touchdown. And it did happen. It was a nice pass. We didn't know Parker was going to play. Let's talk about the Bills here, though. They're the road team. And let's talk about Josh Allen. Just an absolute beastly start to the season. He follows up his first 300-yard passing game with his first 400-yard passing game. 24 of 35, 417, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That's everything you want to see. You don't even care that he only ran the ball 4 times for 18 yards. That's better. Give me the yards through the air and the touchdowns, frankly, and less chance of getting injured. That's the point, right? You're not out there running around. You have less chance of getting injured, and that's a good thing. Now, they threw the ball a good amount, especially in a game that was wet for most of the day. I thought there would be more carries. Singletary had 10 for 56. Moss had 8 for 37. So neither one was able to do enough, to be good. Now, Singletary caught 2 of 3 passes for 20, but still, almost around 10 points is not going to do it for you. And this split with him and Zach Moss is not doing it. It's just not doing it. So, can't play Bills running backs going forward until we see a bigger timeshare for one of them or a lot more carries overall as a team, not including Josh Allen. So, let's move over here. We know that Allen had a big day. So, who caught these 4 touchdowns? Well, there were a couple of, lesser known guys, right? Gabriel Davis, Reggie Gilliam, both caught a touchdown. Their only catch of the day on their only target of the day. So throw those 2 out there. But the big 3 still had big games for Buffalo, starting with Stephon Diggs, 8 of 13. 13 targets, baby. 153 yards and a touchdown. Huge week for Stephon Diggs. And this is what they were hoping. This is best case scenario. I was a little bit skeptical of this pickup in the offseason because of what it cost them, and I was just hoping for a bigger target for Allen to help with his accuracy issues, but maybe it wasn't about size. Maybe it's about a guy like Stephon Diggs, who's one of the best route runners in the game, and is open on an almost every play basis. The guy's pretty much open. It's pretty ridiculous, and he looked amazing, and he's skyrocketing up people's rankings and projections for the rest of the season, and with good reason. He absolutely needs to be viewed as a high-end wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside on a weekly basis. And that's a great thing. Stephon Diggs appears to be an absolute steal where you got him in the draft. All right, John Brown also had a game. 6 targets, but caught 4 of them for 82 yards and a touchdown. John Brown was very, very good this week. He was a wide receiver 2, but just barely. Wide receiver 13 at the moment, so just on the cusp of being a wide receiver 1, and it's pretty amazing that we're talking about a Buffalo offense that could possibly be sustaining 2 wide receivers, in that wide receiver 2, to wide receiver 3 area. That's pretty wild. So we'll see. I know they played the Jets and the Dolphins. They're not going to play the Jets and the Dolphins every week, so I get that. But and even Cole Beasley caught 5 of 6 targets for 70 yards, 12 points. And that's flexible. You know what I mean? Those 12 points, he had to be probably a wide receiver 3, I would assume, or just close to it. Those 12 points. I mean, Cooper Kupp had 13, right? Larry Fitzgerald had 12. Marvin Jones had 12.3. DJ Chark had 12.4. So you could have played Cole Beasley. Juju Smith-Schuster had less points than Cole Beasley. So did Robert Woods. Urgh. Both those guys, Juju and Woods, my boys. I don't want to get into it until we get to their games, but they struggled. All right. Let's go over to Miami here. Fitzpatrick threw the ball a lot, 31 of 47, 328, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Always kind of key for Mr. Fitzpatrick there. And on the ground, we were a little bit, skeptical of Myles Gaskin. Would he really do the work? And he did. He got 7 carries, 46 yards. His long was 14. Didn't do anything for you, but he was the guy that was involved. He also had 7 targets, caught 6 balls for 36 yards. And so if you played him, you got enough points through the air that you were okay with it. So, but he's definitely not the story here. Jordan Howard fell into the end zone. Good job. 5 carries, 4 yards, 1 touchdown. Can't play him. Matt Breida got 7 carries, but, only had 2 targets. So I'm still staying away. I told you to stay away, and I still stay away. Now, as far as the outside goes, Parker, who was questionable, I didn't think he was going to play. Not only played, but did great. Caught 5 balls out of 8 targets, 53 yards, and a touchdown against Tre'Davious White and one of the better secondaries. So he's done it against New England. He does it against Buffalo. And this Fitzpatrick to Parker connection is definitely a real thing. It's there. Now, Preston Williams, a lot of people were thinking he might be a thing this week. I wanted to stay away from him. And it did go his way 5 times, but he caught 1 ball for 26 yards. It was a really tough week for Preston Williams. Now, out of nowhere was Isaiah Ford. Ford was targeted 9 times, caught 7 passes, 76 yards. And no, wouldn't be on my short list of guys to pick up, but is definitely on my short list of guys I'm keeping an eye on for next week. Now, Mike Gesicki went off. And this is, again, crazy. I told people to stay off Gesicki because Buffalo has been just lights out against tight ends. Honestly, they've been great against tight ends. But Gesicki went off like a boss. 8 catches on 11 targets, 130 yards and a touchdown. And when I take a couple of great grabs, I mean a couple of great grabs, including one just spectacular pass that was high and behind him. And in the rain, he just freaking snatched that thing with one hand out of midair right next to the goal line. I mean, it was impressive. He had a great game. One of the top tight ends on the week. Let's find out where he ended up. Again, I know there were some really big games here. He was the tight end number 2 going into tonight. Those 8 catches for 130 and a touchdown, only eclipsed by Tyler Higbee's 3 touchdown games. So, he had a great game. All right. Let's go to our last game of the day. We're going to go to this injury-plagued game of the New York Jets and the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the 49ers, I forgot to tell you that the Bills did beat the Dolphins barely, 31-28, held on. They're 2-0 in first place in the division, and it's a great thing. It's a great thing. All right, last game of the day here. New York Jets hosted the San Francisco 49ers, where the bad juju was in the air, and everybody got hurt for the 49ers. So you heard that Garoppolo got knocked out. You heard that Raheem Mostert got knocked out. But I didn't mention Nick Bosa. I brought up the offensive players, but Nick Bosa probably out for the year. Terrible loss. Solomon Thomas probably out for the year. Terrible loss. I mean, guys were dropping like flies out there. It really was wild. So you got to keep an eye on what's going on, heading into next week, because I don't know what to tell you to do. I don't know if Garoppolo is going to play or if Nick Mullins is going to be the quarterback. I don't know if George Kittle is going to play. I don't know if Raheem Mostert is going to play or Deebo Samuel is going to play. I know their defense is not going to be as good as it was, that's for sure, and they're more than likely going to give up some more points. So I don't know what to tell you to do. So all I can do is tell you what happened here. Garoppolo went for 131 and 2 touchdowns. Before he got knocked out, was having a really good game. And then Mullins went for 71 and threw a pick. So, again, I think Garoppolo, hopefully will be back in next week. If he's not, we'll go from there. But Raheem Mostert, I assume, is going to miss a couple of weeks at least. And so 8 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown, as well as a little bit of work, 2 catches for 15 yards on 2 targets. The big story was he had that big 80-yard run, basically to open up the game, and blasted through that hole and was gone. Was on his way to another huge game before he got knocked out there. Jerick McKinnon also burst out of a cannon for a long run. He had 3 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown, including a 55-yada. Looked beautiful. It was a great run, and it's, again, just great to see McKinnon out there. McKinnon only had one target, did not catch it, so you maybe like to see a little bit more work there. And then Tevin Coleman had the bulk of the carries before he got knocked out. 14 carries, 12 yards, Tevin Coleman. Now, that's pretty brutal. I think Jerick McKinnon needs to be the guy carrying the ball going forward if Raheem Mostert is hurt. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be a committee either way. All right, let's go outside here. We're going to hold off on the big story here, but let's look at the receivers. Kendrick Bourne, I mentioned him in week 1. I thought he could be a thing. He wasn't. And now he, kind of showed back up. 5 targets, caught 4 of them for 67 yards. So had a pretty nice game there. Over 10 points, then that's workable. But that was really it for the wide receivers. Brandon Ayuk, the rookie, got some action, caught 2 of his 3 targets for 21 yards. Trent Taylor caught 2 of 3 for 10. That was really it. Except for Jordan Reed, tight end Jordan Reed. Remember him? Caught 7 out of his 8 targets for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wait for it. Two freaking touchdowns, if you can believe that. So, yeah, I know. Pretty wild. Pretty wild game. I don't know who to play for San Fran. I don't know what to tell you to do. We're going to have to wait till we do the preview show. Just got to wait for it. All right. Let's do the Jets here. Jets are not going to take a lot of our time because they were terrible as always. Sam Darnold, 21 of 32, 179 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and it just brutal, man. I know you're without, your only weapon, at least it looks like, right? Jameson Crowder. And then Rashad Perryman gets knocked out. And then even Chris Hogan gets knocked out. You're already without Le'Veon Bell. I mean, I get all of that, and this all leads to Braxton Berrios. I hadn't heard of him, and he tied for the team lead with 8 targets, caught 6 balls for 59 yards and a touchdown. So, where did you wind up, Braxton Berrios, on the week? Let's see. Let us see. The number 15 wide receiver right now. 15. That's pretty wild. But I'm not expecting him there again. We don't know who's going to be playing next week. I don't even know what happened to Denzel Mims. They said he was going to be back. He didn't get a catch. But Chris Hogan was having a game. He also had 8 targets, caught 6 of them for 75 yards, but then got hurt. It's a rib injury. They said got X-rays. You don't see anything broken, but who knows? Yada yada. I don't know. I'd be worried about it though. Josh Malone got 6 targets, caught 4 of them for 16 yards. I mean, this is just a freaking mess. I can't even believe I'm looking at Kalen Ballage's name on here. Gross. Well, Michael Perrine got a few carries. I mean, yeah, I don't know what to do here. Chris Herndon, if you were playing him for upside, got 4 targets, caught 1 for 5. I think he got the ball. I think he had a red zone target. Actually, I think he had a goal. A end zone target at some point there, but couldn't pull it in. But Jets are really, 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 really bad. Really, really bad. I know people are saying they should get Lawrence. I don't think it's Darnold. I think you start from scratch everywhere else. You keep Darnold, and you start building everywhere else. So, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. That's where we're going to stop today. We want to talk about the injuries, so we'll get through the rest of the games, including Monday night tomorrow. So we got the Raiders and the Saints tonight. You guys know the deal tonight, right? Michael Thomas is out. So you should have your guys in the lineup. And unfortunately, it's already set. But Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, really your only must-play guys, in Vegas. And for New Orleans, for me, Alvin Kamara and probably Jared Cook are my only 2 really must-plays. I think Drew Brees could be in for a quiet night. And I know Emmanuel Sanders is very popular, and he could wind up to be a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. But I do think that Kamara is going to be in for quite a lot of targets tonight. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm expecting to see. So, all right. Thanks for joining us for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're ready for some Monday Night Football. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the rest of the games, let you know any updates we get on the injuries that happened on Sunday. Hopefully we have an injury-free night tonight. You can find me on Twitter at JimmyAnder or at GoatFFPodcast. You can email the show. You can Facebook the show. You can do whatever you want. You can send us a message on YouTube. I read the comments. There's not that many. It's pretty easy. It's usually like fembots. I don't know what's going on there. They're trying to get me to sign up for some OnlyFans. I have no idea. But leave me some comments. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. And appreciate Appreciate you hanging out with the GOAT. Have a great day. Enjoy your game. See you.